Ant-Man is a movie. End of review. No, Ant-Man is just, it's a movie. It is the most 5 out of 10, middle of the road. Nothing much to say. Like, I've seen this story a billion times. Nothing is offensive necessarily. Nothing is bad. Nothing is good. Nothing's great. It's just, I watched a movie today. Holy crap. So on the heels of Avengers 2, everyone knew that Ant-Man was next. And when Avengers 2 was kind of a letdown, I think people were ready to see something fun and exciting and not complicated. Because Avengers 2 is all over the place and has too many fucking characters and it's a bit of a mess structurally. So people were like, yeah, Ant-Man, it's Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas and it's got a heist and it's easy. So people really liked this one. I never really liked it. I didn't see this one in theaters. When I'd finally catch it on home video, wasn't a big fan. I watched it last year again in preparation for Ant-Man 2. Didn't even end up seeing Ant-Man 2 because this one left me so underwhelmed. I bought it because I want to own all the Marvel movies so I could review them for this show, and now I own Ant-Man. So yeah, I've seen this movie 3 times, and holy God, is it boring and nothing, and just if it's your kind of bland and pleasant, I don't begrudge you. There's nothing. It's not like, you know, nothing to dislike about this. It's not like if you're a Transformers fan, I'm going to have some questions about why you like it. Or, like I said, The Last Jedi, or other objectively bad movies. Bohemian Rhapsody, for example. If you like bad movies, that's fine. This is one of the ones where I'm like, okay, if you want to like this, there's nothing wrong with it. It's inoffensive. It's just not for me. It does nothing good. I kind of had an issue with this movie from the jump because it's a really sad story of a studio getting involved early on and kind of ruining the magic of what could have been. Edgar Wright... Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and Baby Driver. Also written a bunch of good stuff. He's written Spielberg movies, for heaven's sakes. Back in like 2005 or 2006, pre-Iron Man, he met with Marvel Studios to do an Ant-Man movie. He had a pitch, he had a take. And it had been in pre-production and in discussion and in development for that long. And of course, I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan. You know, he was one of those filmmakers back in high school. When I saw Shaun of the Dead, I was like, this dude's amazing. Like, this is a brand new, brilliant voice in filmmaking. And he continued to, you know, blow my mind with every movie, Scott Pilgrim aside. So, Edgar Wright was supposed to make this movie, and years ago, there was Comic-Con footage of, test footage of 2 dudes, 2 guards in a hallway, and Ant-Man coming in and fighting them. And it was like maybe a 2-minute clip. It was really cool and really fun, no dialogue. It managed to be exciting and visceral, and you got an idea for how the suit would work. I don't believe Paul Rudd's face. I don't believe Paul Rudd was in there. It's just like a stunt guy in a suit. But like, if you watch that test footage, you find it online. It's really fun, and that sequence is basically in the movie. It's basically the scene in this movie where Ant-Man runs along the barrel of a gun. Like, he jumps at a guy, gets small, lands on the barrel of a gun, runs across it, punches him in the face. That whole sequence was the test footage, basically, and they did it differently here. So Edgar Wright wrote the screenplay with Joe Cornish, who I believe did Attack the Block. I think he might have an Oscar nomination now, or an Oscar itself, for some Brit movie. 2 filmmakers I really like were developing this thing for years. It was, I believe, their idea to cast Paul Rudd. I think Michael Douglas was announced as being part of it. They were really, really close to shooting in pre-production when all of a sudden it was announced Marvel and Edgar Wright had parted ways. He wasn't fired, he just left the project due to creative differences. Which I believe. I think for years he was fighting them and saying, I want to do this movie, I want to do this movie, I want to do it my way. And there was a lot of concessions and him saying, okay, I'll meet you in the middle, let's compromise. And finally got to the point where they were like, look dude, we rewrote your script over the weekend because you weren't listening to us. Either you're going to take this script and make it your own and do what we say, or it's time for us to part ways. And I think Edgar was like, fuck it, I'm just going to leave. So they brought in Peyton Reed, a director I don't know at all. He's done some TV work. He did Bring It On, which I have seen. It's fine. And the cheerleading movie, you know, with Kirsten Dunst, Elijah Dushku, that movie, that's Peyton Reed. And I believe he's done Ant-Man 2. So, yeah, if you look at the writing credits for this movie, there are 2 guys credited with story, Edgar Wright and Peyton Reed, and 4 credited screenwriters. Peyton Reed, or not Peyton Reed, did I say Edgar Wright and Peyton Reed? Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish, the 2 dudes who started it, they're credited with story. And the screenplay itself is credited as being Edgar Wright, Joe Cornish, somebody else, and Paul Rudd. Which is nice to see Paul Rudd get a writing credit. But generally speaking, when you have a movie with that many names involved in the writing, it's not going to be a cohesive thing. This movie kind of is. It's clearly it's a film by committee. in the most harmless, old kind of way. Like, there's a lot of old movies you watch from, like, the 30s, 40s, 50s that, they're charming because of how simple they are. And back then, it was fine. It was almost, groundbreaking to see a certain story done for the first time. This movie is Iron Man, but goofier, with a little bit of Ocean's 11 mixed in. I'm not a big fan. There are a couple sequences that you can very much tell Edgar Wright was all over. The big scene that everyone likes the most in this movie, where Michael Pena, as Luis, is telling stories, and every character, like, it's flashing back to people, like, this guy told that girl, told this person, and everyone's talking with his voice. It's a very long monologue. That's really fun. That very much feels like an Edgar Wright thing. The climax of the movie is being set in a children's room on a small, like, Thomas the Tank Engine train track, and having a train chase that's in a children's room. That feels Edgar Wright to me. There are moments that kind of work, but the movie itself is just, best part about it is Michael Pena, who, I really should do, like, a whole video on Michael Pena. He's such an MVP. I've loved him, I want to say, since Training Day. He's been in so many good movies. He's usually the best part of the movies. You know, he's in End of Watch with Jake Gyllenhaal. Brilliant movie. He's in The Martian with Matt Damon. He is the best part of this movie by far. He's, I think, on Narcos or something, one of the HBO or Netflix crime shows. He is just a fucking great actor, and he is a breath of fresh air in this movie. Paul Rudd, on the other hand, is not charming. Something that I didn't know was possible. This movie managed to make Paul Rudd not charming. It's not offensive, it's just not charming. I watched it with Dan, who, as you can see, is not sitting next to me. If you watch the Avengers video, I mentioned that I might have a co-host. He had no interest in talking about this movie on camera. But it was really weird watching it with him because he didn't laugh once at anything Paul Rudd said. It was kind of a really quiet... The only comments, the only noise from us was asking really obvious questions about the plot that doesn't make any sense. For example, you know, Scott Lang's an ex-con who Michael Douglas wants to be the next Ant-Man. He breaks into Michael Douglas's house. He gets arrested, he's put in jail, and then Michael Douglas has him break out of jail. Couldn't Michael Douglas just, hey, I'm gonna drop the charges, that's my house? Why does he have to be a fucking fugitive the rest of the movie? I don't understand. That's dumb. Also, Scott's big thing is that he wants money for child support, and he's gonna risk his life to save his daughter. Why doesn't Michael Douglas say, hey man, I'm gonna pay your child support, and I'm gonna drop these charges for you, and you can go hang out with your daughter, but, like, the price is you're gonna do this job for me. Like, why does it have to be so covert? The mission at the end. Ant-Man's gonna sneak into a pipe, like a little teeny pipe, to get into this other suit, the Yellow Jacket suit. Why does that container have a tube in it that's 5mm wide, and why does the 5mm tube have lasers? I don't get it. Also, why does Ant-Man need to sneak in through the sewers? Couldn't he just hang out in Michael Douglas's pocket? Because he's Ant-Man? He's really small. If they were gonna blow the building up in the first place and have it all, you know, get sucked into the microdimension or whatever, did they even need to do the heist? Couldn't they have just walked in, planted the bombs, pulled the fire alarm, and then left, and had the whole building go kersplunch? Yeah, it's not good. It's not bad, it's just a lot of really stupid questions. I get it, Michael Douglas loves his daughter and doesn't want to lose her, but she's been fighting martial arts training style since she was like 6. She is smart, she knows the building, she knows the bad guy, she knows how to use the suit, and you have a suit for her. Why don't you just put her in the suit and solve all the problems? It's not very good, this flick. I haven't seen Ant-Man 2. We'll get there. I'm hoping that one's better. I like Paul Rudd. I like the idea of Ant-Man. Like, there are moments where I want it to be cool, you know? The sequence where Ant-Man is invading the building and he's destroying the servers by using ants that can conduct electricity, and he's flying through all these server towers that are short-circuiting. That should be really cool. Like, I want it to be cool. You know, at the end, when he's in the micro-universe, the quantum realm, I want that to be awesome. But it's just, I'm not invested. I don't care. When he's fighting Valken, I want that to be cool and fun. Like, hey, it's Valken. And instead, I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we at the Avengers compound? I mean, I get it, because you needed to tie into the Avengers, I guess, but I needed an action sequence in the middle of the movie, but so they're there to steal a thing that does a thing. It's all technobabble. Also, when Ant-Man jumps down there, like out of an airplane to go invade that compound, he's like, "Did you say this was an abandoned warehouse? You dick! It's actually the Avengers Tower or the Avengers compound." Like, he didn't know. Like, Michael Douglas didn't know it was the Avengers compound. Like, Tony Stark doesn't keep it a secret. Like, everyone knows where the Avengers live. Like, that's his whole thing. He's a big, ostentatious anyway. Also, there's a line in the movie where Paul Rudd says, "Well, the first thing we need to do is call the Avengers." Accurate. That's what needs to happen. Like, it's just, ugh. This movie doesn't need to exist by any means, and there's nothing wrong with that. Make a silly little trifle of a movie all you want, but try to make it fun, try to make it compelling. I don't care about Scott and his daughter, because we're never really going to see them interact. We don't know who Scott was before he goes to jail. All we know is he worked for this company, I guess. The company was skimming from their customers, like millions of dollars taken from their customers. Scott blew the whistle on them. He got fired. Then he hacked their computers and returned millions of dollars back to the people they stole it from, and then he went to jail. Okay, so aside from the fact that the company probably committed a crime in the first place, and he was undoing it, so I feel like there probably should have been some kind of... If he was a whistleblower, you'd think there would have been some kind of deal made, so he would get immunity, but whatever, he goes to jail. But, like, his wife divorced him for being Robin Hood, and now that he's out of jail and he can't get a job, she's like, "No, you can't see your daughter because child support, dick." Even though they live in a really nice house and like her new husband's a cop, like they don't need the money. She's just being a bitch for no reason. I don't care about the family at all. I don't even know how long he was in jail. Like, when's the last time he saw Cassie, his daughter? I don't. It doesn't. I mean, I get it. You need to have a daughter in the movie because Michael Douglas lost his daughter earlier. Or, in the movie, he's like, "I'm disconnected from my daughter, so in this movie, you have to save your daughter," blah, blah, blah. It's like rhyme, it's like poetry, each line rhymes with the next. It's interesting to look at this flick from Marvel's point of view, because Ant-Man was part of the original lineup. If you look at the Avengers lineup back in the day, the original lineup was Iron Man, the Hulk, Thor, Captain America, and Ant-Man and the Wasp. That was the team. And they didn't get to Ant-Man and the Wasp till, well, the Wasp is barely even in this movie. And originally it was Hank Pym. He was the original Ant-Man in the comics as well, working with Tony Stark and Steve Rogers and all that stuff. In the comics, Hank Pym went through a real bad, alcoholism, kind of beat his wife thing, so it makes sense they were gonna not do that and incorporate Scott Lang into it. And I guess there's something interesting there, the idea of a mentor kind of training the new student. But honestly, you know what did it better? I just watched this today. The Mask of Zorro with Anthony Hopkins and Antonio Banderas, same kind of story, involving daughters and revenge and stuff. Like, there's a better way to do this story, and I've seen it done better a billion times. Fucking Batman Beyond did this story better. But it's interesting that they finally got to Ant-Man, and like I said, I like Paul Rudd in general. He's not inoffensive in this movie, he's just so bland. And he's fucking great in Civil War, which we'll get to next. Like, Ant-Man's one of the best parts of that movie. He's charming, he's likable, he's fun to be around. It's exciting to see him be Giant Man, all that good stuff. So I don't know exactly how they missed the boat here for me. And I know I'm not alone. Like, the people I've talked to, I don't know anyone who loves this movie in my real life. I've seen reviews online of people who like it a lot. But as far as people I know, no one's like, "Yeah, Ant-Man." Everyone's like, "Yeah, it's fine." It's inoffensive. Speaking of things that don't make sense, I don't understand the suit. So you have the proportionate strength. So you're a 200-pound dude and you can punch, this hard. And then you get smaller, so you can still punch that hard, but your fist is a millimeter wide. Okay. So later on, when he's running on Michael Pena's shoulder, shouldn't that feel like a 200-pound dude is stabbing you with his feet? I don't get it. In the second one, in Civil War, when he turns giant, does that mean he still only has the proportionate strength of a 200-pound guy? I don't understand the rules of this at all. He can ride ants, but when he goes to click his, on a horse, when you put your heel on the sides of a horse to make it run, shouldn't the ant explode? Because that's a full-size human going Arr! Also, again, it should be so cool. Paul Rudd riding on an ant, followed by a fleet, an air force of other ants. Should be the coolest thing ever, and instead it's just fucking dumb. And he names the ant Anthony. It's cute. Later on, Anthony gets shot, which, damn, good shot. The bad guy blew a single ant out of the air on purpose. And you're supposed to care, oh no, they killed the ant, but it's an ant. They're nothing. They don't have names. They have numbers, as Michael Douglas says. There's a romance kind of thing going on in this movie. At the end of the movie, Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd are kissing. Didn't feel earned. They don't really have much reason to like each other. They have one scene in the car where Paul Rudd is like, I'm expendable and your dad loves you, and also I'm Paul Rudd and I have abs now. And that's they don't have much in common. You know, she's an elite, you know, private school businesswoman who has massive martial arts skills and an estranged father and, you know, the life of a businesswoman, and he's like an ex-criminal, and their banter isn't cool. She kind of has disdain for him most of the movie. It just feels like they have to kiss because that's what happened in the comics. I'm looking forward to the next one because, hey, she's in it again, and she is cool. At the end of the movie where they're like, hey, I have this suit and it's time you wear it. It's like, yeah, that should have happened a while ago. That's all I have to say, and I'm not even going to bother with the tag. The tag is literally a scene from Winter Soldier. And, you know, Winter Soldier's cool. The tag at the end of the movie, of this movie, is the scene in Winter Soldier where Falcon and Cap are talking about Bucky. And it's like, well, we can't do any help. The Accords have fucked us. Tony Stark won't believe us. We're all alone. And Anthony Mackie's like, I know a guy. And you're like, oh, Ant-Man's going to be in the next one. Woo! Which at the time, I was like, God, I don't give a shit about Ant-Man being in the next movie. Especially because the next movie also introduces Spider-Man and Black Panther. But we'll get there when we get there. Thank you for watching Marvel Rewind, episode 12, whatever I'm on. And I'll see you next time with a much, much, much better movie. Ant-Man is a thing. Peace.